A girl goes missing and the world forgets. Later, her photo fades on the milk cartons and the news stations move on. And the only hope was the police, and even they ran out of the leads. Another case, another closed file. But behind one ordinary door, she was still alive, chained like an animal, starving and abused. Right in the middle of the neighborhood where people walk dogs and live their ordinary life, completely unaware of the house of horror next door. Yes, this isn't a fiction. It's what happened to three girls, Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina. It all happened on the same street, in the same bloody month, but in different years. And behind it all was a monster named Ariel Castro, who turned his home into a prison of nightmare. Michelle Knight was just 21 years old, and on August 23rd, 2002, she left home to fight for her son. And all of a sudden, she ended up vanishing into thin air. And when she disappeared, there was no alert, there was no press conference, and the most scariest thing, no one noticed. Because she wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, and moreover, she wasn't a child. So when she disappeared on August 23rd, 2002, the world has moved on. But Michelle didn't, because she never ran away. She got into the car, driven by a man she knew, and the man was Ariel Castro. That was the last time anyone would ever see her free for the next 11 years. And after a year later, on April 21st, 2003, this time it was Amanda Berry. She was just 16 years old and she went vanishing just a day before her birthday. Amanda left to work at Burger King, and while coming back, she called her sister saying, "I'm getting a ride from someone I know." And the scariest part was, she never came home. But this time, the world has noticed, and there was a hope. And the hope was visible because they got a call from Amanda's cell phone. But it wasn't Amanda who was speaking, it was the man who was speaking. He said, "I have Amanda and she's okay and she will be home in a few days." And then he hung up the call. The truth is, he lied. The days have passed into years, and in the year 2006, Amanda's mother had died, knowing her daughter was still alive.
Amanda Berry disappeared around 7:30 p.m. April 21st, 2003, a day before her 17th birthday. She called her sister before leaving her job at Burger King. She was last seen at West 110th Street and Lorraine Avenue. Her mother, Luana Miller, held out hope Amanda was alive. Luana always bought presents for her missing daughter, hoping she'd be home to open them. But Luana passed away in 2006 before knowing the truth about what happened to Amanda.
Another year, yet another April, and another girl gone missing. And this time it was a 14 years old Gina. She had just said goodbye to her best friend, and the best friend was Castro's own daughter. He pulled up, he smiled, and he offered her a ride. She trusted him, and that's it. That was her last mistake. This time, the whole city started searching for Gina. But Castro was clever. He also started searching with everyone else. He was at Gina's family, hugging them. He stood beside the very people he had just destroyed them. And all that time, Gina was locked in a bedroom just down the street. It was three girls, three different Aprils and 3 years in a row. And when something like this happens in a pattern, it's not a coincidence. It's a meticulously planned design, or it might be a ritual, or it might be a predator's rhythm. And Ariel Castro, he was hiding in a plain sight, just behind those windows. Inside a normal house, there was hell. And what those girls went through inside is something darker than anything you could be expecting. When we look Ariel Castro's house from outside, it looks like just another house. Paint chipped, windows broader, nothing unusual and nothing suspicious. Just another house on Seymour Avenue. But inside it was a different world. A world of chains, a bucket for toilets, bare floors, and silence so loud it could break anyone's mind. Michelle Knight was the first prisoner in that house. As soon as she walked in, it slammed the door, tied up with ropes, later chains to the bed, and then to the pipes, sometimes even to herself. And he made sure there was no food for days, no light, no water. And what Michelle had was just pain. And Castro told her, "You're never going home." And Michelle did believe it. And she wasn't just beaten, she was totally broken. He used to hit her so hard and starved her for days. And he used her like an object, not a person. And when she got pregnant, he didn't let her stay pregnant for long. He made sure she would lose it. Not for once or twice, for 5 times. 5 pregnancies, 5 beatings. Each one ended up in the same way, with Michelle being on floor, bleeding, crying, and she was all alone. And still, the outside world did not knew where she was. And then came Amanda, then Gina. These were two different girls, but the same nightmare like Michelle. Each was chained in a separate room. Doors were locked, windows covered with blankets and boards, and on the outside, he hung wind chimes, so he would know if they ever tried to escape. Castro was a bit smart. He was sick, and more importantly, he was very calculated. He controlled everything in that house, even when these girls could eat, even when they could breathe. Castro used to test them, leave the doors unlocked, just a crack to see what they would do. And if they tried to run, he would beat the hell out of them. He would drag them by the hair, choke them, and starve them for days. He made the rules, and he made sure they knew. This is your life now. But even in that darkness, something unexpected happened. Amanda got pregnant, but this time he didn't force a miscarriage because this baby was his. He wanted the baby. In the year 2006, on the evening of Christmas Day, Amanda gave birth right there in the plastic riddled pool in that house of chains. Michelle had to help deliver the baby, and when the baby came out, she wasn't breathing. Castro looked at Michelle and said, "If baby dies, you die too." But luckily, Michelle saved the baby, and for the first time in years, a new life began inside the nightmare. Amanda named the baby Jocelyn, a little girl who was born in prison, a prison with no bars, no sunlight. But even that child could not save them. For years and years, these three girls lived like a ghost, hidden in the same house, just a feet apart, but never free. They were forgotten by the world and they were only owned by one man, that was Ariel Castro. And the scariest part was no one heard a thing about it. Soon the days didn't feel like days anymore. Because when someone locked inside a house for years, they would lose all the sense of time. And this three girl had only one thing, that was pain. Michelle, Amanda, and Gina were living inside a prison. But to be honest, this prison was worse than an actual prison. This one had no bars. It only had extreme silence, darkness, and fear. Each morning started the same, a clock clicking open, heavy footsteps on the stairs, and then they just waited to see what mood he was in. Would he bring food or would he bring fish? Would he leave you chained for another 12 hours? Or would he say, get up, it's time for another round of hell? There was no pattern. It was only brutal punishment for no crime committed by these girls. He controlled every damn thing. When they need to eat, when they need to use the bathroom, and when they're allowed to speak. And the most scariest thing is, it was only one meal a day, and once a week for shower, and toilets, a plastic bucket in the corner of the same room they used to live. Sometimes he wouldn't let them empty it for days. The smell, the heat, the infection, the shame. Oh my god, these girls were living in hell. And neighbors were just feet apart. People walked past the house. He played music on the porch, laughed with his friend, and to look innocent, he used to go to church every Sunday. And once he's back from the church, he used to torture them. What kind of a monster lives to life like this? But even in that darkness, these girls found a way to hold on. Michelle kept a mental diary. Amanda started teaching her daughter Jocelyn how to read. Gina found comfort in prayers whispering at night. And whenever he left the house for a few hours, these girls become alive. Amanda and Gina would talk about TV shows, The Vampire Diaries, American Idols, and for a few moments, they weren't prisoners. They were just teenage girls. But they lasted only moments, never lasted long. Because Castro would return. Sometimes he would be drunk, sometimes he would be angry, and sometimes he is bored. And when he was bored, he invented new punishment. He would tie one of them up and make the others watch. He would play loud music to drown out the screams, or he would turn up the TV so that the neighbors wouldn't hear. But the silence in that house wasn't peace, it was a survival. They weren't just physically trapped, they were being mentally reprogrammed, punished if they cried, beaten if they begged, told every day, no one is looking for you, no one cares for you. This is your life now. And years of hearing it, a tiny bit of part started to believe it. But another part, the one that held on, the part was still alive and it was waiting just because something was about to shift. Something small that would change everything. But who was Castro? For the outside world, he was just another man, a school bus driver, a guy who played bass in a local band. He is a very friendly person with his neighbors. He used to go to church on Sunday. No one suspected a thing, but inside his house, three women were chained, beaten, and starved. And the most terrifying part, everyone saw him, but no one saw them. Castro didn't hide in shadows. He showed up for the search parties. He handed out flyers. He hugged Gina's mother at her own daughter's vigil. He even told the reporters how sad the whole situation was. I hope they find her, man. It's not right. He looked the mother in the eyes while Gina was locked in his home. He lived among them for 10 years. Neighbors walked by his house daily. Some say they did hear strange things, a girl screaming, pounding on walls. One woman even claimed she saw a girl crawling naked in the backyard. So, why did anyone break down the door? Just because Castro was a bit smart. He played music loud to drown out noise, hung heavy curtains, broadened up the windows, set up wind chimes and alarm on doors, so even the smallest movement would alert him. He told people that upstairs were under renovation, told visitors they weren't allowed past the living room. Don't go upstairs. And all of them believed him. Even the cops missed it. In 2004, Castro was reported for leaving a child alone in a school bus. Officers came to his house, knocked the door, and spoke to him, but they never went inside. Just imagine that. The police were at the front door while Michelle was smacked in the next room, one door away from freedom, and no one has opened it. He was living two lives, and to be honest, the both lives were flawless. By day, he was a helpful neighbor, and by night, he was a calculated predator. And all this time, Jocelyn was growing up. She was learning how to speak, how to think, and how to ask questions. And soon, she would start asking the wrong ones. It was May 6, 2013, and after 10 years of darkness, Ariel Castro made his first real mistake. He left the house and he forgot to lock the door inside. It wasn't wide open, just slightly unlatched, just enough for Amanda to notice. But this wasn't the first time he had done it, because sometimes he left the door open just to see if they would try, and when they did, the punishment was brutal. So Amanda froze for a while and started thinking, was this another trap or was this for real? She noticed everything. She started to listen to tiny noises, such as the footsteps. There were no footsteps. The voice. There were no voice. No cracking floors above. There was pure and absolute silence. And for the first time in a decade, she decided to make a move. She walked to the door, tried to open it. The outer strong door was still locked with a chain, but the inside door was unlocked. She pushed it hard. It barely opened. She could see the daylight, but couldn't reach it. So she did the usual thing anyone could do. She screamed, saying, "Help, help." Two neighbors heard. One was Angel Cordio. He didn't speak much English, but he knew something wasn't right. The other man was Charles Ramsey. He ran over when he heard the noise. Amanda was pushing her arm through the door, begging for help. Ramsey tried kicking it open once, twice, and finally the third time, the door gave in. And Amanda crawled out for the first time in 10 years. And she looked at Charles in the eyes and said, "Call 911. I'm Amanda Berry." And Ramsey was stunned. He was like, "Amanda Berry, the missing girl." And then he called 911. And Amanda spoke, saying, "Help me. I have been kidnapped. I have been missing for 10 years. And now I am free."
Help me, I'm Amanda Berry.
You need police, fire, or ambulance.
I need police.
Okay, and what's going on there?
I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years and I'm here, I'm free now.
Police raced to the house. They kicked in the doors, guns down, not knowing what they would find inside. What they found shocked the world. Michelle Knight was upstairs. When the officers entered, she ran into their arms, crying, screaming, repeating just one sentence: "You saved me, you saved me, you saved me." And in another room, it was Gina. 10 years of captivity over in 10 minutes. Castro wasn't home, but his empire of control collapsed in seconds. The police called it the miracle of Seymour Avenue. But to be honest, it wasn't a miracle. It was Amanda's courage and timing. It was a door that finally did not lock. Castro wasn't home when they broke the girls out. But it didn't take long enough to find him. The same evening, Ariel Castro was arrested in the McDonald's parking lot. He looked like any other guy just finishing his lunch. But what he had been doing was inhuman. At the police station, the walls started to close in. He didn't fight. He didn't deny. He told them everything, confessed the kidnapping, to the abuse, to the rapes, and to the years and years of control. But there was something strange in how he said it. "I know what I did looks bad, but I'm not a monster." Investigators searched his house. What they found was beyond disturbing. Chains still bolted to walls, locks, buckets filled with waste, a handwritten note where Castro blamed his sex addiction and suicide later, just in case he got caught. But even now, he still thought he could twist the story. But the charges came very fast. Hundreds of counts: kidnapping, rape, assault, and even aggravated murder for the pregnancies he violently ended. The total number of charges were 977, and his bail costed $8 million. The media exploded. People wanted justice, they wanted blood. But Ariel Castro took a different route. He struck a deal to avoid the death penalty. He would plead guilty to over 900 counts in exchange for one thing: life in prison, without a parole, plus 1,000 years. He would never walk free again, ever. And then came the sentence. The courtroom was full. The world was watching. And the judge asked, "Do you understand that you will never be released from prison?" Castro nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." But what came next was disturbing. He stood up and tried to justify it all. He said, "I am not a violent person. I am just sick. Most of my sex was consensual. There was harmony in the house." What harmony? He starved them. He beat them. He forced miscarriages. Kept them chained like dogs. But in his head, he was just misunderstood. But someone in the courtroom wasn't going to let him rewrite history. And it was Michelle Knight. She stood up and her voice shook the room. She said, "You took 11 years of my life. I have spent 11 years in hell. And now your hell is just beginning. I will overcome all of this, but you will face hell of eternity. And you will die a little every day, as you remember the pain you inflicted on us." The courtroom was silent. No one breathed, even Castro. That moment definitely belonged to Amanda. And the part of the plea, his house, the prison, was ordered to be destroyed. And on August 7, 2013, Michelle Knight released yellow balloons into the sky, one for each missing child in Ohio, as the recurring ball crushed the home brick by brick, and the house of horror was gone, and the monster locked away forever. Or so everyone thought. He was sentenced to life plus 1,000 years with no parole or no mercy. But Ariel Castro didn't even last 1 month in prison. On September 3rd, 2013, just 34 days after his sentencing, he was found hanging in his cell with a bedsheet around his neck, dead. The man who chained 3 women for decades couldn't handle 4 weeks behind bars. The prison called it a suicide, but the reports showed something darker. Because Castro had no suicidal warnings, he had been checked every 30 minutes, and the sheet he used was against prisoner policy. Some believe it was a setup, others say he wanted to escape justice once again. But this time it didn't matter because he was gone. And the women's, they were just getting started. Michelle Knight changed her name to Lily Rose Lee. She wrote a book, spoke at the events, became a symbol of resilience. I may have been chained, but now I'm free in my heart. She forgave Castro, not for him, but for herself. And Amanda got a job with Fox 8 News, helping find missing people. The same kind of girl she used to be. And her daughter Jocelyn, she is safe, she is healthy, she is smiling. She might born in hell, but now she is living in peace. And Gina, she opened a Cleveland Family Center for Missing Children, a place to help families keep hope alive. She also became the co-founder of a non-profit to support kidnapping victims. Together, these 3 women didn't just survive, they rose, they fought, and they lived. And that house has gone completely, turned into an empty lot, now called a place of peace and remembrance. And remember, sometimes monsters don't hide under your bed. They might live down the street, smile in public, go to church, play music. Evil doesn't always look evil, but no matter how dark it gets, no matter how many years passes, hope should never die. This woman didn't just escape a prison, they rebuilt their life from ashes, and in doing so, they reminded the world strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, I have survived. And that's it for today. And I'm Sai from SPK Reports. And remember, one story at a time.